came to faith and was meeting with the rabbis, I went for answers. Okay, who's addressed this? So I went to talk to Jews for Jesus, and they had great tracts for outreach, really good tracts for outreach, but they didn't have a lot of apologetic material. I went and talked to Christian scholars, because remember, I'm studying all in secular schools, secular universities, and I don't know any real biblical scholars that are believers. So I found out about a Christian scholar here or there, or I would read their books on Messianic prophecy, and they were great, but they didn't really have the Jewish sensitivity. They didn't really respond to the Jewish objections. And then I saw that many Jews who were coming to faith, as I did in the late 60s, early 70s, were being pulled away because the rabbis had these very strong objections and very reasonable objections, and the believers didn't have solid answers, and they were getting confused and falling away. So out of that, there was a necessity. And I began to write up some answers to objections just for a friend's study Bible. And a colleague said, Mike, these are the best answers we've seen. And then I felt there's a mandate. I need to do this. So I wrote out the top 120 objections that I encountered, that I found in counter-missionary literature, that I encountered dealing with rabbis. I divided them into 6 categories: general objections, historical objections, theological objections, messianic prophecy objections, objections to the New Testament, objections based on traditional Judaism, and put out the 5-volume series. Now, it's interesting when you mention Talmud in rabbinic literature is called Yam HaTalmud, the Sea of the Talmud, because there's so much in it. So within the Talmud, you have different interpretations of Isaiah 53. One place it applies it to Moses, another place applies it to Messiah, another place to the righteous remnant in Israel. And as for Maimonides, it's only in his epistle to Yemen that he references Isaiah 53 as messianic. In his Mishnah Torah, which is his legal guide, he just talks about the Messiah as a ruling, reigning king and teacher in Israel. There's nothing about him suffering. So even there, you have to work through the different traditions and so on. But I wrote those out of necessity because they didn't exist. And by God's grace, they've been used to help many. And what really blesses me is when I meet a Jewish believer who says, Dr. Brown, I'm still in the faith because of you. Now, it's all because of the Lord. Anything we do is his grace. But in other words, they had the questions, they got hit with the objections, but now they found solid answers. I actually ran into someone from the Philippines the other day, a Gentile, who was dealing with Muslim attacks on Jesus using some of the similar arguments that the rabbis used. He got my books and came to faith through that as a Gentile. So the truth is the same truth for everyone.